Hey everyone, so it's time for another World of Warcraft video, and this time we're doing things a little bit differently. I think this one's a bit more raw, a bit more from the heart of having a coffee and full of beans, and that's why we're going to be talking about some things that Blizzard could just do that for the most part are really simple that I feel would greatly increase the quality of the game. Now look, sure, this is going to seem a bit more spicy from time to time, but here's the deal. I'm bearing with 8.2 to actually get into 8.3. I'm back, I'm playing the game a lot more, and the Shadowlands actually looking really solid. I mean, hey, no Azerite, no AP. I'm actually carrying out the game far more. That BFA, apathy has just lifted, just like how you can uplift your audio experience with the Objective 2 AMP Desktop Edition from Drop.com, formerly known as Massdrop. Yeah, we've done a whole bunch of headphones with Drop lately, but today it's something that's dead important, and it's probably something that you don't actually have, and that is a really good quality amp. Now, chances are you're using your motherboard's 3.5 mil jack going in there, and that's not really ideal. You're not getting the best out of your equipment. Having a dedicated amp lets you drive higher end, higher resistance headphones, and well, the Objective 2 provides an extremely clean, analytical sound, exactly what the artist ended up delivering. It does that. I mean, especially with the Objective 2, the noise floor is insane. There's no noise when you crank those things up maximum, and they really will just maximize your hardware. I'm always using them with my Drop HT6XXs and my DT990 Pros, so yeah, just hop into a better world of audio, check out that link down below, and with that, let's get into the video. Let's just do a quick 831. Right, essences. You know what, at this stage, I think that those being account bound probably just does make sense. I think that's the path of least resistance for Blizzard to go through, and I think that, it's an 8.2 system, unlocking fully the new 8.3 essences. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think realistically to get the most out of 8.3, I think that is what Blizzard should do, considering that 8.3 basically is a reset of the BFA expansion in terms of design, especially with things like AP basically not mattering. So there's that. Now, I also have two other things. Back in Mists of Pandaria, we had a very nice system where once you got enough reputation with a faction on your main, you would account-wide unlock a rep boost with that faction for your alts. And that meant that it was just really nice getting up your reps on your alts. It felt a lot better paced than things do with BFA right now, or I assume Shadowlands in the future. So I think that is something that is extremely important for them to do. Another thing, and this is something that again they did in Mists of Pandaria, was making it so that if you in that case, you capped VP, Valor points in your main, and you would get a 50% bonus to earnings on your alts. Now, this wasn't exactly a perfect system, but it did the job, and I think right now they have a bunch of systems for those things that don't really do the job that well. I think something like this would be a really easy to understand solution that would basically just achieve their goals and really help Shadowlands be the alt-friendly, player agency first expansion that Blizzard really intended to be. Okay, the GCD change. Come on, right? Come on, Blizzard. That GCD change, I actually think that is the single worst thing you've done for World of Warcraft's gameplay, because, you see, here's what the GCD change actually does. What used to happen, right, is your cooldowns would come off, and, they'd be instant, right? You hit them, they go. So you do a whole bunch of those at once, and then you'd hit your main ability, and you would get this crazy, fast-paced, peak of your specs gameplay, right? The APM would shoot up, and you'd do a really cool thing, and it would feel great. But do you know what happens when all of those offensive buffs then actually get put on the GCD? Well, what actually happens then is it just smooths out that pacing. And by smooth out, I mean homogenize. And I think that has made so many of our specs have their high points not really feel as good. And overall, I just really think it's made World of Warcraft feel so much worse to play. And it's one of those things where it's not like it completely ruins it, it just makes everything a little bit worse. And really, I think, for no good reason. Sure, it's maybe a bit more balanced being able to see the animations in PvP, but let's be real, in PvP, most people will be using weak auras and things to keep track of their enemies anyway, and frankly, World of Warcraft PvP, I love it, I really do enjoy it, but I don't think the game should be balanced around it. There's a lot more to WoW than that, and this GCD change, showing the animations just so it's balanced, I think it's been a colossal mistake, and it would be so easy to just revert it in Shadowlands. Just do it. It'll be better. Trust me in this one. And next up, we've got adding 2 classes. This is something that I just want Blizzard to do, and thankfully, it seems like it mostly is something that they are doing. But there are a few crams, right? So the Covenant abilities, being tied to the Covenant that you go with. I mean, come on, right? Just put them in a talent tree, give players a bit of choice. You've said the player agency is like a core of this expansion, so I think pigeonholing people into a Covenant based on the playstyle or the mechanical viability of a certain ability, I think that really is against player agency in this expansion. I think it's a really, honestly, a pretty silly idea for how the game is realistically played. I think your Covenants actually look awesome. I think they look great. I think your artists have done such a good job with all the rewards that we've seen thus far that I really just think that picking a Covenant based on what you think is the coolest and not having your abilities be tied to that is the way to go. And here's the thing, you can still have Covenant themed abilities. You could just unlock them by helping the Covenants out, and then maybe the Arbiter could grant them to you as, as a new talent tree. And just for this expansion, you could choose one of those abilities. I think that would be way cleaner. I think it would lead to just way less sort of negative aspects of gameplay, like feeling pigeonholed into things, and it would be easier for everyone involved. So yeah, let's just do that. I mean, I'm going to roll an alt for every Covenant anyway. Why not just give us all the abilities, let us choose? I mean, it would feel just like how when I logged in the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch on my warrior, and I saw all my new stuff, and it was really exciting. I mean, if you could just choose between those abilities, I think you'd recapture that. I think it would be exciting, and I think it's the right move. And the next little side thing, Blizz, no Conduits. Please no Conduits, right? So here's the deal. Conduits are things you socket into your soulbinds, okay? Now, they work, and Blizzard have said this, they work like the patch 7.3, like, augment thingies for the Shadow and Light, where, I mean, basically, they're consumables, right? So if you put a Conduit into your Conduit slot, but then you get another Conduit, or maybe one is just more balanced for a certain build or something like that, and you put it in, well, your old one just goes kaput. It's gone, right? It's a consumable, like a gem. Now, here's the deal, right? Gems are, destroyed when you swap them out of a socket, right? Because it balances the economy. Now, in this case, the only thing that you're balancing is time, so by making that, just making your old Conduit disappear as soon as you replace it with a new one, you're actually just balancing the economy of players' time, i.e. it's basically just a random punishment for you, the player, existing and wanting to do stuff with your character. It's just this kind of weird, arbitrary punishment that sometimes Blizzard just likes to throw on you for no good reason. I mean, think about those reforging costs in your Azerite gear. Is that really needed? I mean, it just kind of feels like that. So Blizz, I think you're getting so many good wins in this expansion. How about you rethink those Conduits and make them a library of things like the essences that players can unlock for their character? Especially if you're trying to make this expansion super alt friendly, so somebody wants 2 really good alts, well, they're going to feel really quite bad when they're trying to optimize their Conduits, but then, find that they're destroyed, so they can't build up a library and feel like they're progressing on those characters. Because when I fill in a library of things, I feel like I'm processing. But when I feel like, it's a consumable thing like these Conduits are going to be, I feel like I'm stuck in a treadmill. That's not really a good thing. Now, on that topic, de-treadmilling. This is just something that's really broad for me, but it's that thing where the best you can do is stay on the treadmill. And there are a lot of aspects to Battle for Azeroth that really do feel like that. You're just stuck in the treadmill. The best you can do is not fall off, and I don't think that's a really exciting way for the game to be. And that treadmill is often all just down to player power. What I think is a lot more exciting is if player power is not an endless treadmill, if it's actually pretty simple, where there's a clear base you can just go for, but then the game has a really rich variety of rewards in other areas. If I think back to Wrath of the Lich King, or even Mists of Pandaria or the Burning Crusade, I'd think about my gear stuff, more in the later expansions, but when I wasn't thinking about my gear, right, because it was easy enough to just do the stuff I needed for my gear, I was thinking about, well, what reps do I want to do? And all the reps felt different and unique. So I think that's a way more healthy way for the game to be than it just to be a player power treadmill. It seems like this next expansion could be doing a way better job in this regard. That does fill me with hope, and it's a lot of why I'm decently excited about Shadowlands, but I think it's just really important to emphasize it in this video. And then next we got something that I've already kind of touched on, homogenized reps. I'm going to bring in world quests here because, man, this has, in my opinion, sucked massively since Legion, and I think it's such a thing that they used to do pretty okay, but they now do really badly. So, what do I mean when I say homogenized reps? Well, okay, Tortolans have, slightly unique quests. Okay, some of the Nazjatar ones do as well, but you get the point, though. Every single rep is just a bunch of world quests. There's nothing unique about the reputations. Now, if I think back to the expansion that I was sort of first and most properly aware of, right? That was TBC. When I was playing that, Skadis felt different to Sporagar. Sporagar felt different to the Isle of Keldanas reputation, and that felt different to the Netherwing rep. And yeah, it was just a mix of some of them are, some of them are daily quests, some of them are grindy things, but they all just felt a little bit different. Now, if you fast forward that into Wrath of the Lich King, what did you have there? Well, you had your Wolvars and your Oracles, right? Our Frenzy Heart and the Oracles, they felt like pretty different to the other reputations there. You later have the Argent Tournament, which again felt different to the other reps that were there. If you look at Mists of Pandaria, right? You had your Cloud Serpent rep, you had the Shadow Pan rep, and they all just felt a little bit different because their mechanics in a lot of those cases were just a little bit different. And I think that just gave Blizzard so much more spice in the day-to-day gameplay. And this kind of ties back to me talking about the treadmilling, where right now, all the reputations are in a big homogenized system with your emissaries. You don't really feel like you've got much of a choice to do them, it's just a pretty important thing that you've got to do. Now, the way that it used to be when those reputations were not tied into a big homogenized system that was all about your players, your character's progression, you would feel a lot more free to just not do a rep if it didn't suit you, or, to maybe just say, yeah, I'm going to focus on Netherwing now, and it's not going to be important for other things, but I'm just going to go do Netherwing, and Netherwing will feel different to Skadis, or different to Sporagar. I think there was a really good thing that they had there, and they lost that in Warlords of Draenor, and then they made a big, homogenized, monolithic system in Legion called World Quests. And World Quests meant that reputations were just bars. They were just bars that got filled up. That was that. And they all felt the same, because whether you were doing the Viking guys or, the Emerald Dream guys in Val Shara, they all just felt the same. It was just filling a bar doing some random quests. There was no pacing to it. There was no unique mechanics for those reputations. Now, there is one way in which Battle for Azeroth has done kind of well there, and that is the recent, the Honey faction that you get the bee from. Now, it's not the most thrilling thing ever, but it's a reputation that actually feels different to the others. So, here's what I'd say, Blizz. Give us our covenants, but see, for the reputations, don't make them homogenized world quests. Make them like the reps of old, just that nowadays, you guys can do so much more. Your game looks so gorgeous. You can do so many more cool mechanics. So how about you make the reps like that? I think that would really help World of Warcraft, just like regular content, feel so much more rich and varied, and importantly, player-driven, because a rep has a playstyle and some unique rewards that you opt into, so you go and do that, instead of just, it's all the world quest soup that we know of today. And as a final thing, frankly, I just think the current World Quest situation, it's just so cheap. I don't think it's befitting of one of the most profitable games on Earth. I think they can do better. Okay, next, Flight. Gotta be real here. Now, way back in Warlords of Draenor, I got in a lot of trouble for being a pro-grounded gameplay player, right? Because of all the game design reasons. Like, you have a quest, the quest at the top of a tower. If you can fly, the tower doesn't matter. You just fly to the top of the tower. So that's kind of what I was talking about then. But with the way that the game works now, with the world quests, how they're spread out across the map, and just the realistic sort of way that you're actually playing World of Warcraft, gotta admit, Pathfinder, to me, it does not feel like a reward, it feels like a punishment. And here's what I would suggest. Have it be grounded gameplay while you're leveling up, but on launch day of World of Warcraft Shadowlands, have Pathfinder, and have it be the Pathfinder that gives you flying. And just, maybe it'll take 2 weeks, but whatever, just let people work towards that from the get-go. There is no reason to just arbitrarily delay that. There are reasons, it'll give people a reason to come back for a patch, but I think for, the player experience side of things, there's no good reason to hold Pathfinder back that much. Just open up the unlock from launch, nice and simple. And then I would also say, think back to Wrath of the Lich King. 2 of your most iconic zones ever, Ice Crown and Storm Peaks, they were designed for flying, right? Ice Crown, you touch the floor, you're just going to have a whole bunch of dudes on top of you in an instant. Storm Peaks, you want to go up a big cliff? Well, it's a good thing you've got your flying mount. There was like a really strong fantasy in both of those zones, and flying actually unlocked that, or really enabled that. So I would say this, Blizzard, how about you just try to give us flying way earlier on, maybe even during the leveling, but actually try to make zones, now that you guys are so incredible at making some of the most beautiful immersive zones in gaming. How about you try your hand at making a flight first zone? I would love to see what the team can come up with these days. I think it would be extremely impressive and would really have people excited to get back into the game. And with that, let's move away to PvP vendors. This is a small one, but man, this is a personal one. So the way it used to be, right, is you get your PvP resource, you go to the vendor, you look at your character and think, okay, well, you know, I got this bit of gear from a raid, maybe I'm going to get this other bit of PvP gear to fill in another slot. Well, what actually happened is Blizzard decided that what you would actually do is spend all of your PvP gear every single time, no matter what, in a completely linear order. So they thought, okay, well, how about we just remove the vendor, give people an honor bar, and just give them gear in a set order every week? I mean, honestly, it's almost, I don't want to joke too much about real world things, but it's almost like, you know, getting your ration ticket. It's like the state has just told you, you know, greetings, comrade, you are getting your gear in this order. Whereas what I would say is, for PvP, hey, let me hop into an arena, let me get some resources, let me take that to a vendor, and let me spend it however I want. Because maybe, okay, maybe I've done one of the other things you put in your game, like say I did the mythic, the mythic dungeon week, and I got a bit of heroic quality raid gear for some reason for doing that. Okay, well, now I've got that in a certain slot. So maybe that's going to change the order in which I would normally spend my PvP resources. But you guys did not take that into account because you just made one massive monolithic one-size-fits-all system that I think, based on player feedback consistently since BFA beta, is not one-size-fits-all whatsoever. So, PvP vendor, just do it. I mean, come on, it's not complicated. Then next, I want to talk about the weekly checklist, and this is a kind of an interesting thing because there's so many things that often feel mandatory that it's like, if you just want to hop in and, you know, do a dungeon, do a raid, like, you literally can do that, but if you want to do it and actually feel, you know, good about doing it because your character's in a decent state, it feels like there's then this big weekly checklist of things that you've got to do. Like, you know, you've got to do the things they've just put in for the sake of having them exist, like the war fronts, the island. It's like, ah, yeah, that's just more stuff I've got to do before I get to the thing that I actually want to do. So I would say, Blizz, you guys, you got to watch out for your weekly checklist, and you got to keep them down a little bit. Now, I know you might think, okay, we keep the weekly checklist down, and then our players just go in, do a few dungeons, and then they leave. What I would say is that, you know, the game was actually really successful when those weekly checklists didn't exist as much. But what would actually happen is players would go in, they'd achieve their goals, but then there'd be other things in the world for them to do. Be that alts, which will be a lot more possible in Shadowlands, or be that, you know, a reputation that feels a bit more unique, like Netherwing, that would actually eat up 2 or 3 weeks of a player's time as a little side activity they could do. Or same goes for the Cloud Serpents. I mean, if you guys had that, it would be way better. Take the mounts, all the gorgeous mounts that Battle for Azeroth has had. So many of them are just, you know, do world quests until a bar fills up and there you go, you get them. Or, you know, randomly get them from an island expedition. Well, what if that was actually just you know, even a really traditional reputation? I mean, that wouldn't feel like weekly checklist content, but it could be that if I go in, I do the things I want to do in my character, oh, I now actually have this big smorgasbord of things that I actually want to do, that I can do, that I feel like I am choosing to do, instead of I feel like, oh, well, you know, I really should do that or else I'm going to fall behind. So, that's what I would say about the weekly checklists. Then next, a quickie, set pieces. Let's just get set pieces back. I mean, come on, right? The set pieces are cool, right? Our class sets, and I mean, the ones in this expansion, they've not really felt great, have they? I mean, everyone just looks the same, pretty much, if they've been doing the raid content, and I know, at least for me, that's been really demotivating, especially because I just got a Warfront set that looked really good at the start of the expansion, and then it was like, yeah, a bunch of the other gear just didn't really look that good, and wasn't really that unique to my class. So, for me, as somebody who likes to, you know, kind of get to the experience of my character, right, the RPG side of things, it just felt like there was not really that much there for me to go and get. I mean, take set pieces, right? Even if you are 2 raids ahead, right, like you're in, say, the 7.3, the 8.3 raid, but if there's a whole bunch of set pieces from the, you know, the first raid of the expansion, and they look really cool, well, you're actually, you know, you're maybe going to want to try to get those in your alts, and that's going to give you actually some gameplay to do in your downtime, when you're not, you know, infinitely grinding AP. So, things like that, I think, are way more healthy for just the player-driven aspect of just going out and doing stuff in the game. Then next up, I'm just going to say this, Systematize. Now, I've talked about the reputations and the world quests before, and I've talked about how Sketis, Isle of Keltanas, Netherwing, they all felt super different. Now, I think there's a bunch of things in World of Warcraft that very transparently, right, feel like they're a part of a really big game system. A game system that feels like it's from Blizzard Entertainment, not from Azeroth, if you kind of get my drift there. And I think that just as a very high-level design ideal, I would love it if Blizzard just took a little bit more more of a think about how that stuff can really feel like it's originating from the world. And I think the world quests have been the most easy example of that, where it's like, yeah, if it all fits into the world quest system, then no matter what you're doing, it all feels the same. At best, it's just a different color of the same thing. Whereas, you know, the older reputations, yeah, sure, some of them were a bit janky, a bit grindy, but they all at least felt different, and that was very good for making Azeroth feel like a really big, diverse place. So, de-systematize, that is what I would basically say, and I think that's a really good design ideal to just apply across a lot of the game. I think that would allow a lot more content to feel bespoke, to feel unique, and most importantly, to actually unleash the creative potential of the legions of talented developers and talented artists that are over there at Blizzard, because right now, they've got to make the stuff that they're making within the constraints of these big overarching systems. I really feel like if those things could just be more tailored to their own fantasy, you could just get some designers just do a thing they care about, go absolutely wild with it, and have so much fun. I mean, some of the things like Chromie that have just clearly been a thing at the side that's not part of a big system, that's where I felt the creativity that I know that team has really shine out. And if that could be there in more things by desystematizing the game, then you know what? I think that would be really great. And then next up, yeah, I'm going to say it, Mage Tower style gameplay. Now, here's what I actually mean about this. So if you take the visions, the horrific visions, and Torghast, I think they're probably going to be so much fun solo, and the reason why is going to be because of the stakes. Because if you're doing a horrific vision, I've done them in the PTR, right? You're doing a horrific vision, it's on PTR, you're in there solo, so if you die, you die. That's it. Now, if you do that with a group, you die, you take a corruption penalty or sanity penalty, but you just get revived, and you can play around it a bit more. So basically, what actually ends up happening is that for the horrific visions, I think it's way more fun as a, like, its own little video game challenge in solo, in the same way that the Mage Towers are really fun, than it is in a group. But the thing is, you'd be mad to play it solo, because the way the rewards are going to work, and, you know, the fact you're only going to get limited access, I imagine, to Torghast and Visions, yeah, that'll be such that you're going to go in with a group, because you need those, you know, rewards for your character's progression. Now, what was great about the Mage Tower, and this is a little bit like with Chromie and the previous point that I mentioned about desystematizing the game, the Mage Tower didn't matter. Right? It didn't matter to your character's power, and that meant that it was just a solo thing. They could design it to be solo. I mean, imagine a multiplayer scalable Mage Tower. It would suck. It wouldn't be the Mage Tower that we all know and love. And that is why I would say I'd love it if things like Visions and Torghast could maybe have their, like, solo, infinitely replayable mode that just has some cosmetics on it that you could go and do. I mean, Torghast playing that with my friends, I'm totally down for that. I think that'd be really fun. But Torghast playing that in the same way that I'd play The Binding of Isaac trying to do a challenge, I mean, it seems like Torghast mechanically is capable of offering that, but it also seems like because of the other ways it's going to tie into the game, Blizzard won't be able to really have it fully kind of realize its potential there. So I'd love it if they just thought a little bit more about why the Mage Tower worked in that regard and try to work that into things like the Horrific Visions and Torghast in the next expansion. So there you go, that's the stuff that, to be honest with you, I've just been tearing my hair out over it over the last 3 years. And I mean, no, it's not running away because I've been tearing it out, don't worry. But, you know, that's been stuff that's really been personal to me, right? And because with 8.3's changes and with the social situation for me changing and that getting me back into playing the game and into 8.3, now I'm prepping my character for 8.3, these things have all just, you know, I felt them all a lot more now. And that's why I've decided to actually sit down and record this video just to get it all out there. And I know this has probably seemed like a really, I'm not an angry video, but a really, you know, I guess emotional video, whatever. I mean, that kind of is how it is. And the reason why this video is being made now is because I suddenly care about actually playing World of Warcraft a good bit more. Whereas I think the most damaging thing of BFA is I just didn't care. I found it impossible to care. But I now actually do care a bit more, and that's why this video has actually appeared. So, I would love to know, what do you think about these things, and what are your things? What are the things for you that you've just been, you know, you've talked to your friends in Discord, and you've just thought like, man, if they would do these 3 things, the game would be so much better realistically. I would love to hear what you think about that stuff, so please do let me know down below. And I suppose, you know, from time to time, if you want more videos like this, do also let me know. I mean, we're big for our scripts and our productions and our nice cameras and all that, but actually sometimes just sitting down and talking is, you know, I mean, it gets stuff out there, right? So let me know what you think there. That's it for this video. Let me know what you think. I'll see you next time.